Mixing with my career building tip, adapting in an ever changing industry. One of the things that is maybe most difficult to do, but most important to be successful at, is being adaptable, being able to change what it is that you do and adapt to the environment of the way the music industry is. And I think this is particularly important for producers and for engineers. For people who are creative artists, you adapt to the changing times. What are people listening to? Maybe that sound that you're really into is too dated. So you need to update your sample libraries and kind of move to a more modern sound, more modern production techniques. What are people doing? And that's kind of one way. From a writer's standpoint, I tend to avoid saying things like that because I think as a real artist, you want to be breaking those boundaries. And sometimes the way to break those boundaries is to understand what the boundaries are. And the more that you understand and study the boundaries, the easier it is for you to break through and find out what the next thing is that people can latch onto. So there's this sort of backward principle where it's like the more you study what's going on, even if it's awful, right, it opens up a window to what people will be able to sound that is really, really cool. That is that twist that gets everybody really excited. And that's the type of music that you really want to be creating and making. It's the same thing from the engineering side. You always want to be following new technologies, new plugins, new gear, new microphones, new ways of recording, new ways of producing, sound replacing, whatever it is. And following these things because in understanding what they are, most of them are garbage and most of them won't be around 5 years from now. But if you really pay attention, you look, some of them are actually really, really cool. And the ones that do hang around, those are the tools that people are going to want to use. One of the ways that I really maintained, success in terms of moving forward in the career was whenever there was a new technology that was introduced, I always wanted to learn it as soon as possible. Because the sooner I learned it, the more valuable I became to people who would want to use it. And that started off with digital tape machines. So if you got a digital tape machine, it was like a 400-page manual. I buried through the whole thing, just tore through it, trying to understand how this thing worked inside and out, because that made me valuable. That meant when somebody hired me to do something, right, I could just rip through and use this machine like it was, just, something I've been working with for years. And these are things that, when you pick up a new plugin, when you get it, so you have to really use it a lot, figure out how it works. Like there are many plugins now that from Waves even that I've been using now for a few years. And the more I use them, the more I get into the subtle aspects of what makes them really, really, really cool and finding new ways to adapt and change, right? The way that I approach them to get different sounds and get different characteristics. And that's part of growing, right? And it's an important part. On the career level thing, sometimes certain kinds of work will just dry up. It's important to kind of see where people are going, how people are changing. Like a major one was in the late 90s when a lot of the studios were closing down and the record company budgets were shrinking and people started to go to mobile home recording. And to be on the cutting edge at the beginning of that was really important because it really informed me now about the whole process and how over the last 15 years, how dramatically that has changed the industry. And I've experienced all those parts of it. And that helps me out amazingly well. And also seeing forward what new technology is going to change things or what new way of recording. Right now, a lot of that is recording to iPads and iPhones and working with some of the technologies there on a more mobile basis because that's a lot of kids now don't have computers. They have iPads, which means that they're going to want to be producing and working with music and doing things that way. And the more that you understand that, the more that you can kind of move forward. Always important to follow technological changes, creative changes, and things that are happening in the industry. At least if you understand what they are, you won't be blindsided them when things start to change. And sometimes things change pretty quickly. All it takes is one really amazing production that's done with a certain plugin or application or whatever that blows people away, and everybody's going to want to know how to use it. Auto-tune was like a classic example of that. And many, many other innovations that have kind of come along the way. So, all right, there's my career building tip. Adapt to an ever-changing industry. So keep your eyes open. Always kind of see what's going on and what's coming up.